And we are ready.
Welcome, everyone, to the regular meeting of the Minneapolis Planning Commission for March 24th, 2025. My name is Chris Meyer, and I'm chair of the Planning Commission. And thank you to you all for your patience as we fixed those technical issues. But now we're ready to get started, so I'll ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Commissioner Baxley is absent. Campbell.
Here.
Chowdhury.
Present.
Conley.
Present.
Gordon.
Present.
Jones is absent. Meyer.
Here.
Shefty is absent. Thompson is absent. Wagner is absent. We have 5 members present.
Let the record show we have a quorum. First, we'll take the minutes of March 10th, 2025. Is there a motion to adopt those minutes?
So moved.
All right, is there any discussion on those minutes? All in favor of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, the minutes are adopted. Next, we will organize the agenda. Staff has recommended that all of our items go on the consent agenda. So I'm going to read through each of them. If you were here to oppose one of the items as I read through them, please raise your hand and let me know when I mention that item. So first, for item number 4, there will not be a public hearing on this one. And then for number 5, 1111 West River Parkway, was anyone here to speak against the staff recommendation for item number 5? All right, not seeing any, so item 5 will go on consent.
Is that individual?
For item number 6, were you looking for something, sir?
How do you find the staff recommendation?
Oh,
There's an agenda there, so
Yep.
you can pick up.
were you here to speak against an item?
I don't know what the agenda, what the staff recommendation is.
Okay. For item number 6, we have 2704 29th Avenue South. Was it, you'd like to speak against the staff recommendation? Okay. So we will discuss item number 6. And then item number 7 is 6001 Penn Avenue South. You're here to speak against item number 7? Okay.
Concerns.
All right. We will discuss item number 7 as well. All right. So to review, we will have item number 5 on consent and discussed 6 and 7. Is there a motion to adopt that agenda?
So moved.
Oh, Chair Meyer.
Yep.
I apologize. I was out of the office last week, and so we didn't actually put on the agenda about finalizing elections for this evening. So if we would like to do that this evening, now would be the time to amend the agenda to include it. However, it's at your discretion if you would prefer to postpone that to the next meeting. There's no significant issue with postponing it if you prefer.
No, let's get it done with. And I thought that was on the agenda already, so
I'll make a motion to amend the agenda to include the elections.
okay.
Second.
Thank you.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That agenda is adopted. All right. So first, we have item number 4, which has no public hearing. This is the Snelling Yards Tax Increment Financing Plan. Does anyone want a presentation or have any discussion or questions about item number 4? All right. Seeing none, is there a motion to adopt staff recommendation for item number 4?
So moved.
All right. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Item number 4 is adopted. All right, now I'll open the public hearing for our one consent item. So that is item number 5, 1111 West River Parkway. If anyone would like to speak to the item, you can do so. Would anyone like to speak to item number 5? All right, seeing none, I will close the public hearing. Commissioners, is there any discussion or questions about item number 5? All right, is there a motion to adopt the staff recommendation for item number 5?
So moved.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Our consent agenda is adopted. All right, so now we'll move to our first discussion item, 2704 29th Avenue South.
Thank you, Chair, Commissioners. The item before you is located at 2704 29th Avenue South. It is a minor subdivision. The property is currently zoned PR2 in the interior 3 built form and is 17,784 square feet. As shown in the red there, the parcel is just south of the Midtown Greenway. The applicants are proposing to split off that parcel A from the remainder of the existing parcel. That parcel A will be retained by the city, essentially serving as right-of-way associated with the Midtown Greenway. The land to the south of that would be sold. It's my understanding that that would be to the parcel to the south there. The parcel the city would retain would be just under 5,000. Again, the rest of that square footage would go through a property sale to that adjacent property to the south. Staff recommends approval of this. I'll be here for questions as well.
All right. Any questions before we move to the public hearing on this? Commissioner Conley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. One question. The parcel to the south, that second parcel, do we know the ownership of that one? Parcel B?
Perhaps the applicant could let us know about that ownership. I'm not familiar.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, I'll open the public hearing. Is the applicant here? Go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us about your project.
Hello, my name is Lisa Passis. I'm a senior project coordinator with CPAD Business Development. We currently own the property at this location. To answer your question, we do know the owners of the adjacent property. It is Hillcrest LLC. There is a potentially we would do a side yard sale if the split gets approved, so that the owner could have better control of their lawn maintenance.
Right. Any questions for the applicant? All right, thank you. Next up, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, please and thank you. My name is Jeff Borowiak, and I live in the property right across the street from this location. And we just learned about this, fairly new, and have been going through the plans. We're not entirely opposed to the arrangement from what I've talked to my neighbors, because the intention is to not change it from a green space area. I've been at the property for 19 years, bought it 19 years ago, and originally it was, when I first moved in, it was a huge parkway, the whole other side of the block from us. And I didn't realize at the time that it is a Superfund site for hydrocarbon-based waste plume that's underneath the property. We all got really upset because we're all very environmentalists on our block. There's only 7 houses on the block. The building to the north has no one in it right now. It used to be a gear company. And across the street, they cut down all the trees and they paved over everything. And said that they had to do it because it had special channels in it. They wanted to make some money off the property. It had special channels built into it to collect the outgases from the Superfund site. And it was my understanding that the garage on the north side was used for collecting and monitoring. So that's one question I had for the planners. Is that been considered, and is that on the property in the garage? I didn't see anything in the planning report about that question. I think the other thing that I would like to ask the Planning Commission to consider is if it does get up for sale, I think that the neighbors would be more interested in purchasing the property to turn it into a community garden and hopefully a good relationship with the neighbors next door. But the neighbors next door, the Hillcrest folks, haven't come out to any of our neighborhood meetings, our block meetings, and it's a very difficult neighborhood. The city blocked off the north side of the street there right at the Greenway where the train goes through. They did that to slow down traffic for the school. that's up by Matthews Park. But it created a cul-de-sac on the south side where we have a lot of homelessness. And now just recently, we're adding a 100-bed site just a block and a half away from where the proposed property is. And that's one of the issues, too, is how much homelessness is going to be there. But turning that cul-de-sac right there is a very difficult location for us with the amount of drugs and prostitution and homeless folks. We're not opposed to helping the homeless. We actually give them a 2 or 3 day notice and try to work with them to help them out. But, the drugs and prostitution and the needles on the street, it's been a constant issue. So I think the neighborhood would be very interested in purchasing the property as a community garden, something like that. And so I'd love to see the residents have opportunity to bid on the property if the intention is just to keep it a green space. That's all I think I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Would anyone else like to testify? All right, not seeing any, so I will close the public hearing. And I have some questions. So Andrew, if you can come back up, and maybe Kimberly can answer some of this. This is unusual. I don't think we've ever had a contested subdivision come before us. So first for Kimberly, what are the options available to the Planning Commission at this time on this item? Is this the type of thing that the Planning Commission could just choose to deny, or would it need findings?
Chair Meyer, so again, the only application before you is a minor subdivision, which is found to be in conformance with all of the requirements of the subdivision ordinance. So if the Planning Commission wanted to deny this minor subdivision, then yes, you would need to make findings in order to do so.
Okay. Yeah, I guess that answers my question, maybe. Commissioners, are there any other questions? Commissioner Conley?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Can you put that map up again one more time? Okay, so, yeah, right. So the part in the red is what would be for sale?
That's the entire site today.
Okay.
So, again, the green box there indicates that red box on that previous screen.
Yeah.
We see that diagonal line, that parcel A area. That's the area that would be retained by the city, essentially, maintained as right-of-way. The southern portion of the site would then be sold.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
All right. Any other questions? All right. I guess my thoughts are that, it's a policy decision for the city to decide how they want to do this. But the question before us is just about the subdivision, and I don't feel like there's any basis to deny the subdivision aspect of this. So my position would be to vote with the staff recommendation. Are there any other thoughts or motions from commissioners? Would anyone like to put a motion on the floor? Commissioner Campbell.
Move to adopt staff recommendation.
Is there a second? All right. Is there any discussion on the motion to adopt the staff recommendation for item number 6? All right. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Item number 6 is adopted. All right. Moving to item number 7, 6001 Penn Avenue South.
Good evening, Commissioners. Before you today are 2 applications for a proposed gas station replacement at 6001 Penn Avenue South. The 2 applications are a conditional use permit to modify a gas station existing on the effective date of the ordinance, and site plan review for a new gas station, including a convenience store and car wash. The subject property is located at the southeast corner of the intersection of Penn and 60th Street. The site is zoned CM2 and Corridor 4 built form, a little over 12,000 square feet. The property is currently developed with an existing 2-story gas station and minor auto repair use. This property has been in use as a gas station and minor auto repair for 70 years. So it currently has this existing two-story building sort of towards the southeast corner of the property, and then a service canopy with 8 pumps located to the west of that. The property currently has 3 existing curb cuts, and then also has vehicle access between the gas station and the adjacent public alley. The applicants are proposing to remove the existing gas station and to construct a new gas station and car wash. Gas stations, the establishment of new gas stations is not permitted in any zoning district in the city. Gas stations existing on the effective date of the ordinance, so prior to the land use rezoning study in 2023, are a conditional use in this zoning district. Car washes can be allowed as accessory uses to gas stations, and in this case, the scale of the car wash and gas station is such that this car wash would be treated as an accessory use here. With this proposed project, they're proposing to significantly expand the convenience store portion of the use and to relocate that building up to the intersection so it has frontage on the street, to reduce the number of fuel pumps from 8 to 6 and to move that to the center of the site, and then to put the new car wash on the eastern end of the site. With the project, they're proposing to retain 2 existing curb cuts, the one on Penn and the eastern one on 60th. They are proposing to eliminate the western curb cut on 60th, as well as to eliminate vehicle access between the car wash and the alley. Since the publication of the staff report, we have received 3 sets of public comments. Those are provided for you in your packets today. There is also a staff memo changing our response to the first conditional use permit finding and adding an additional condition of approval on the CUP. After discussing with several of the neighbors and the applicant, staff did have some revisions to that finding to reflect some concerns about the visibility and potential noise from this use, and its prominent visibility to residential properties to the southeast. And I can run through, so this project does have quite a few recommended conditions of approval. There are a lot of alternative compliance requests associated with the plans as submitted. I'm not going to run through all of those, but staff is recommending approval of some and denial of some with associated conditions of approval. If there are any of those specific conditions of approval that you have questions about, I'm happy to address those. But there are a total of 20 conditions of approval on the site plan review application. And so that, so here are the recommendations. This here is the amended conditional use permit recommendation with that added condition of approval, and then all the conditions on the site plan review application. And so we are recommending approval subject to those conditions, and I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for staff before we open the public hearing? All right, not seeing any, so I will open the public hearing. Is the applicant here? Come and introduce yourself and tell us about your project.
Hi, I'm Brett Loftusness with Architectural Consortium, Minneapolis. I'm the architect, representing the owner here. We are excited to redevelop the site. It's, I think, overdue for some refresh. We are moving as Andrew said, moving the building up to the corner to allow for much better pedestrian access, a better streetscape with glass fronting both sides. The addition of the car wash next to the alley is kind of helps screen the alley and the east side of the site. We'll have some fencing along the east side and south side of the site as well. And as you mentioned, the gas canopy would reduce from 8 fueling stations to 6, and we're squeezing in as much landscaping as we can. I think it's almost entirely paved right now. So I think this will be a nice addition to the neighborhood.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you for coming before us today. My question is just, could you clarify where the screening will be in relationship to where the car wash is and just situated with the new design of the gas station?
Yes, if you have, I don't know if you have the site plan up there, but so directly south of the car wash, you'll see a small box in the southeast corner of the site. That is our trash enclosure, which will be completely screened. So we'll have some fencing between the car wash down to the trash enclosure. And then from the trash enclosure running west, we will also close off that opening with fencing. That currently, the adjacent site to the south is a commercial business, but that easterly portion of that site is a parking lot. So we're going to separate that opening so that residents in the alley can't see in there, and there's no glare from headlights and so forth.
That's great.
That makes
Thank you.
sense.
Thank you for clarifying that.
All right, any other questions? Not seeing any, so thank you.
Thank you.
Next testifier, go ahead and introduce yourself and give us your testimony.
My name is Sherry Sheehan, and I live directly behind the gas station. I'm not entirely opposed to it, as long as it, is pleasantly not any worse than it is now. And I was not aware of all of these submissions from other neighbors, so some of the things that may have been addressed some of my concerns may have already been addressed, let's put it that way. The biggest issue I have is with lighting. It's directly into my family room. I can see it now. So if it's going to be all night, or are the lights going to be on all night, that's a concern. It wasn't a problem until the gas station extended their service hours up to 24 hours about 10 years ago or 15 years ago. And so we have lights in our house all the time in the evening. I'm concerned about hours of operation. There have been some theft incidents at the corner mini mart across the street. There have been parties out in the parking lot of the existing gas station when their hours are closed, like Saturday evening. He talked about fencing. I'd have to see, what it looks like before I would be entirely approving of it. I don't want to be seeing car washes and that sort of thing. I like to know where the car wash is going to exit. Is it going to exit in the alley? My garage is right on the alley. We practically share the same. We're so close to the gas station, it's almost like we share the same property. So it looks like it's a lot smaller than some of the other similar properties. There's a gas station down the street that has a car wash, and that looks like it's on a bigger piece of property. So I am concerned about the car wash and the store, the convenience store, and the hours of operation. And who's going to be hanging out there? There's been a lot of kids hanging around in the parking lot. So that's a concern to me too. And noise. So those are my concerns. I'd like to see a better rendering of this operation.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to testify to this item? Go ahead. Introduce yourself and tell us your testimony.
Thank you. My name is Philip Roos, R-U-C-E. I'm here in a couple capacities, I guess. The first is I've lived in the neighborhood, Armitage neighborhood, on and off since I was 7. Moved away for college, came back with my family in 2018, and we love the community. Love being a resident of Armitage, and we love it enough where when it came time to expand my business, we purchased the property directly south of Rick's, which is 6009 Penn. So if you look on the planning there, directly south of that overhang is our building. So I own the building and I own the firm within it. As a commercial tenant, we benefit a great deal from a vibrant commercial and business environment. So seeing that building getting rehabbed, they've always been a great neighbor anyway, but seeing that get rehabbed and improved would be a big benefit for us. So we don't have anything with the project itself that is bothering us, but I did have a couple quibbles with the design itself that I just wanted to mention. Directly to the south of that property, our building goes right up against the property line. It's been that way since 1962. It's not a new thing. It's the property line, and then it's our concrete block covered in plaster and paint wall. When we rehabbed the building, I can't tell if you can see it here, on the very lower left-hand corner, there's a retaining wall there. And I knew this was going to get damaged. I'm not worried about it, Rick, if you're hearing me say this. I'm not concerned about this at all. But my point is, when I put that retaining wall in there in front of a couple parking spots, I knew for a fact that there was going to be some love taps from the cars that were parking there, and I'm going to have some damage to my retaining wall. That's fine. The parking spots were there first. My point is, though, even in a low traffic area, there's been some damage to the property there. And now, with the car wash, my concern is, if you look at that overhang, on another slide, I believe I saw a measurement of 12 feet from the overhang to our wall. So if you're standing under the overhang, looking at our wall, you got about 12 feet. And then if you walk backwards, I see that there's a pump that's sort of angled. I can't tell from the measurement, but I'm eyeing that, and I'm going to say that's less than 6 feet. So I'm thinking there's 18 feet between that pump and our wall. Anyone who parks there is going to be taking up some space. If you look at the trucks that people are driving now, a Ford F-150 with its mirrors out is like 8 feet wide. And it's also angled, so part of that truck or vehicle is going to be closer to our wall. It's going to force people to drive very close to our painted stucco wall. And if the business is successful, and I hope it is, that's going to be a very high traffic area. And it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when someone drags their mirror across my wall. And it's going to happen a lot because, of course, it is. That's what happens. Every car wash you go to, it's usually lined with concrete stanchions or some sort of bumper. If you go to the car wash on 60th and Penn, there's a Mr. Car Wash or something. They have these concrete spheres that sort of line the way. In fact, the car wash that Rick used to run across the street, if you go through that car wash and you come out the other side, there's some concrete stanchions to protect his fence over there. My point is, I don't see any concrete stanchions or protections for our property, and my concern is just that when this damage happens, because it absolutely will, my insurance company is going to be contacting his insurance company, and it's going to be a whole thing. And I've always gotten along really well with Rick. He's a great neighbor, but I wanted to get this on the record and say that I have some concerns that our building is very vulnerable to people being idiots in their car, more or less. So that's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to testify? All right, not seeing any, so I will close the public hearing. Andrew, can you answer some of the questions that were brought up during the hearing about where the car wash will exit? And also, does the new condition that you added in, would that help mitigate the lighting issue? And as well as any other questions that came up during testimony that you want us to respond to?
Chair Meyer and Commissioners, so the concern about the car wash exiting, so today, this property has direct access to the alley, right? Both in front of the building and behind the building, you can drive between the alley and the vehicle maneuvering space on this property. They are proposing to close off the access between this property and the alley. So there will be curbing and landscaping between both the car wash entrance and the car wash exit and the alley. There would be no access at all between this building and the alley. So the way that cars would typically exit the property when leaving the car wash would be onto 60th Street. And in this plan, that is just shown as a landscaped area. We have conditions of approval that are recommended that require a 6-foot, 95% opaque fence in that area between the maneuvering area and the alley. The one exception to that is providing a 15-foot sight triangle at the intersection of the alley and the public sidewalk on 60th Street. The additional condition of approval that was added on the conditional use permit, that is the fence along the south property line between the rear of the adjacent building and the trash enclosure. That there is the site plan review standards do not require screening between commercial properties, right? So the site plan review standards don't require screening there. The issue about light and noise from the property that was raised by a few of the neighbors caused staff to rethink that and connect it to the conditional use permit findings and recommend providing a fence in that location. There were also some comments about lighting and glare from the existing lights. I'm not sure that the existing lights at the property have been reviewed for compliance with the zoning code. There are a lot of properties that make changes to their lighting and they're not necessarily submitting a lighting plan to us if they're not going through a formal development review process. I don't know if there have ever been any complaints about the lighting submitted or regarding the lighting that have been submitted to us and investigated, but we do have standards about maximum illumination at property lines, both for commercial properties and residential properties. And so for a project like this, we do require, as part of their final PDR, a submission of a lighting plan, and that includes showing the anticipated illumination, and it's measured in foot candles at the throughout the property and then at the adjacent property lines. And we have a condition of approval that's recommended that they do submit that lighting plan. And there is a maximum illumination at residential property lines of half of a foot candle. In addition to that, there is also a specific development standard related to lighting in service area canopies about the maximum illumination there, and that's measured in lumens per square foot. And it also prohibits lighting fixtures on service area canopies that extend below the bottom of the canopy where the light would be spilling out to the sides rather than just down. And we do have that reflected as a condition of approval here, and that's something that will need to be shown on their lighting plan before their PDR will be approved. As to the concern about vehicles hitting the adjacent building, we don't have anything in our zoning code that addresses that. I don't know that there would be a rational nexus to add a condition of approval addressing that, but we would certainly not, if the property owner wants to propose adding bollards there, we would certainly not oppose that. And I think that's all the questions that came up, but I'm happy to address any others.
Yeah. Sorry, you're saying you do not think we could include bollards as a condition? It would just be something that the applicant.
That's my initial thought, and Kimberly is welcome to jump in too. But I don't think there's necessarily, I think like anticipating reckless driving. I don't think that's necessarily something that's like inherent to the site design, and it's not part of the site plan review standards.
Okay. Thank you for that. So I'll share my thoughts first. I do think this is a pretty substantial improvement from the status quo. It looks a lot more pedestrian friendly. And with a lot more landscaping. It does seem like an opportunity to make additional improvements for the neighbors to mitigate lighting, and I hope the applicant will be a good neighbor on that and try to avoid damaging his neighbor's retaining wall. But I'm inclined to support the project. Comments or motions from commissioners? Commissioner Campbell.
Thank you, President Meyer. Motion to adopt staff recommendation on this item.
And that's including the condition, the added condition regarding the screening, right? What's the motion that we need to make to make sure that the condition is included?
Yes, thank you, Chair Meyer. So it would be a motion to adopt staff recommendation with the 2 conditions of approval under the conditional use permit and the 20 conditions of approval under site plan review.
Is that your motion?
Yes.
All right. Is there a second to that motion? Here, a second from Commissioner Gordon. All right. Any further discussion on that motion? All right. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? That motion is adopted. Good luck with your project. All right, that is all our items, and then we have the nominations from last time. Would someone like to move the slate of nominations, which was Kimberly?
Sure, I can recap. So we
Yeah.
have our officer elections happening today. So we have a nomination as Commissioner Meyer for president, Commissioner Baxley for vice president, and Commissioner Wagner for secretary.
All right. Would someone like to move that slate?
I will move the slate, Mr. President.
Second.
All right. Is there any discussion? All right. Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? That is adopted. Thank you all. All right. No, I don't have a speech. Sorry. No. Yeah, so that concludes our business. Our next meeting will be, what is it, April 14th, I think? Is that correct, Kimberly? For the next regular meeting, and then we have Committee of the Whole this Thursday, the 27th. Are there any updates from staff or commissioners?
Yes, just one update regarding the project at 1302 Douglas and 1716 Fremont Avenue South. I think I had told you last time that we did receive an appeal from the applicant on the commission's denial of the FAR variance on the site plan review. That went to the Biz Committee of the City Council last week, and the Biz Committee upheld the Planning Commission's actions. So that will go to the full City Council this Thursday.
And Chair Meyer, if I may just tag along and point out that because council takes a council week during Minneapolis spring break, Minneapolis Public Schools spring break, there's 3 weeks between today and the next meeting, just to highlight that. Thank you so much.
Great. We will enjoy our extra long vacation, I suppose. All right. Any other updates from anyone else? All right. Seeing no other business, we are adjourned.